This is how an empath acts badly towards a narcissist who has been hurt. There's a quiet power in an empath, an emotional depth, a sensitivity to energy, and a deep desire to heal, to connect, to make things right. Empaths feel everything, sometimes too much. They absorb pain like a sponge, not just their own, but the pain of others. And when they're involved with a narcissist, that gift becomes their greatest vulnerability. Because here's the painful truth. Empaths don't set out to hurt anyone, especially not a narcissist. But when an empath finally wakes up, when they see through the manipulation, the lies, the emotional games, their quiet strength becomes the most dangerous thing a narcissist can face. And that's where this video takes a surprising turn. We're not talking about how the narcissist hurt the empath. We're talking about the moment the empath stops playing the game and how, without saying a word, they become the one thing a narcissist fears most, someone who sees them clearly and walks away anyway. So what does it mean when an empath acts badly toward a narcissist? Is it revenge? Is it cruelty? Is it finally becoming toxic in return? No, it's something far more powerful. It's healing. It's boundaries. It's silence. And to a narcissist, that feels like violence. Today, we're diving into how an empath acts badly toward a narcissist who has been hurt, not through rage, not through retaliation, but through the one thing narcissists can't survive: indifference. Because when an empath stops reacting, stops trying to fix, stops giving energy, they do more than leave. They expose. And that exposure? That's what breaks the narcissist. So if you've ever been called cold, cruel, or heartless for walking away, for setting a boundary, for finally choosing peace, stay with us until the end. What we're about to uncover might finally explain why they can't let go, and why you did the right thing. Let's begin. First, let's clear something up. Empaths don't act badly in the way most people think. They don't plot revenge. They don't spread rumors. They don't scream or manipulate. In fact, most empaths spend years trying to be kind, to understand, to heal the relationship, to believe the narcissist can change. But here's what happens when an empath finally wakes up. They stop trying to fix what was never meant to be fixed. They stop begging for honesty from someone who can't be honest. They stop giving energy to someone who only knows how to take. And that shift, quiet as it may seem, is what the narcissist experiences as cruelty. Because to a narcissist, love is not about care. It's about control. And when the empath stops reacting the way they expect, when they stop feeding the drama, when they stop chasing, the narcissist feels something they can't process: loss of power. So let's go deeper. Let's look at what the empath actually does. The actions that to a narcissist feel like betrayal, punishment, or even attack. The empath stops reacting, and that's the worst thing they can do. Narcissists thrive on reaction. Whether it's anger, sadness, guilt, or even love, they need to know they're being felt. They need to know they're affecting you, because that's how they measure their power. But when the empath wakes up, they stop reacting. They don't scream when insulted. They don't cry when abandoned. They don't beg when ghosted. They just walk away. And to the narcissist, that silence feels like annihilation, because for the first time, their manipulation lands in empty space. No drama, no conflict, no emotional fuel. And that's not because the empath doesn't feel pain. It's because they've chosen to stop showing it. They've chosen to protect their peace. And that choice, that's what the narcissist calls acting badly. 2. The empath sets boundaries, and that feels like a wall. Empaths are often seen as soft, overly kind, even weak. But the moment they set a boundary, they become unbreakable. They say no to guilt trips. They block instead of begging. They remove themselves from toxic situations without apology. And to a narcissist, this feels like rejection. Not just of their behavior, but of them. Because boundaries force the narcissist to face the truth. They are not entitled to your time, your energy, or your love. But the empath isn't being cruel. They're being clear. They're saying, I care about you, but I care about myself more. And that's a truth narcissists can't accept. 3. The empath chooses themselves, and that's unforgivable. One of the most painful moments in a narcissistic relationship is when the empath finally says, "I matter too." That's not selfishness. That's survival. But to a narcissist, it feels like betrayal, because their entire world is built on the empath putting them first. The empath sacrificing. The empath staying no matter how much they're hurt. So when the empath finally chooses themselves, when they stop apologizing for existing, when they stop shrinking to keep the peace, when they stop being the emotional caretaker, it feels like abandonment. And they will do everything to punish that choice. They'll call you cold. They'll say you've changed. They'll claim you're the one who became cruel, but you didn't. You just stopped letting them hurt you. Or the empath speaks the truth. And that's what shatters the illusion. Empaths don't usually go public. They don't seek revenge. But when they do speak, when they quietly tell a friend, write in a journal, or simply name what happened, they do something dangerous. They expose the truth. Not with rage, not with drama, but with calm, quiet honesty. They say, "They manipulated me. They gaslit me. They used my kindness against me." And that truth, spoken without anger, is more powerful than any scream, because it doesn't come from a place of pain. It comes from clarity. And that's what destroys the narcissist image, because now, someone who once believed in them has seen through them and spoken up. 5. The empath heals, and that's the ultimate defeat. To a narcissist, the worst outcome isn't anger. It's peace. Because when the empath heals, when they rebuild their life, when they laugh again, when they love again without fear, they prove something devastating. They don't need the narcissist to be whole. And that's the one thing a narcissist can't survive. Not your hatred, not your revenge, but your freedom. Because your healing means their control was never real, that their power was an illusion, that you saw through them and chose yourself anyway. 6. The empath stops idealizing them, and that's when the mask cracks. In the beginning, the empath often idealizes the narcissist. They see the potential. They believe in the good person underneath. They hold on to hope. But when the empath wakes up, they stop seeing the fantasy. They see the pattern. They see the manipulation. They see the emptiness behind the charm. And that shift from idealization to clarity is what makes the narcissist feel exposed. Because the empath was their biggest believer, their most loyal audience. And now, that belief is gone. And when the one person who saw them as special finally sees them as human, flawed, broken, manipulative, it shatters the illusion they've spent a lifetime building. 7. The empath walks away without looking back. And that's the ultimate rejection. Narcissists expect you to chase. They expect you to beg. They expect you to return, broken, and begging for another chance. But when the empath walks away and stays away, it feels like death, because they can't rewrite the ending. They can't play the hero. They can't make you the villain. You just leave, quietly, peacefully, without drama. And that finality, that lack of reaction is what haunts them. Not your presence, but your absence. 8. The empath refuses to be a victim, and that takes away their power. Narcissists need victims. They need someone to blame, to control, to drain. But the empath, in their healing, refuses the role. They don't call themselves a victim. They call themselves a survivor. They don't dwell in pain. They grow through it. And that refusal to stay small, to stay broken, to stay trapped, it strips the narcissist of their power. Because without a victim, they have no story, no justification, no control. 9. The empath builds a life that no longer revolves around them. And that's unbearable. For years, the empath's world may have revolved around the narcissist, trying to fix them, soothe them, understand them. But when the empath heals, they rebuild their life on their own terms. They pursue their passions. They reconnect with themselves. They form healthy relationships. And when the narcissist sees that, when they realize the empath is thriving without them, it feels like erasure. Because they were never the center of the story. They were just a chapter. And that's the hardest truth. You don't need them to be happy. And that's what breaks them. 10. The empath becomes unreachable, and that's the ultimate fear. The narcissist can handle anger, they can handle tears, they can even handle hatred, but they cannot handle indifference. Because when the empath becomes unreachable, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, they lose their hold. No more reactions. No more guilt trips. No more emotional games. And that silence, the lack of engagement, is what the narcissist fears most, because it means they no longer matter. In conclusion, when we say the empath acts badly toward a narcissist, we're not talking about cruelty. We're talking about strength, about boundaries, about healing, about the quiet, unshakable decision to choose peace over pain. And yes, that feels like an attack to a narcissist, because their entire identity depends on control, admiration, and influence. And when the empath stops giving those things, the narcissist begins to fall apart. But here's the truth. You didn't break them. You simply stopped fixing them. And that's not cruelty.
That's self-love.
So if you've been called cold, heartless, or cruel for walking away, know this. You didn't act badly. You acted wisely. You acted bravely. You acted like someone who finally remembered their own worth. And that, more than anything, is what they can never survive. Thank you for watching. If this video resonated with you, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing it with someone who may be on the path to healing. Don't forget to leave a comment below. Let us know your thoughts, your experiences, and how you're rebuilding your life after toxicity. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Remember, healing is not a straight line. It's full of ups and downs, moments of strength, and moments where you may feel uncertain. But every step you take away from their chaos brings you closer to your truth. Keep going, keep growing, keep reclaiming your power. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourself, stay grounded, and never stop believing in your own worth.